Yes! Hello, LinkedIn and YouTube friends. My name is Becky Carlson. I'm here with my friend and psychotherapist Laura Greenwood, and we're here to talk with you for an hour and a half about love. I can't think of a better way to spend a Wednesday afternoon, Laura. So I'll briefly introduce myself, and then I'm going to hand over to Laura. Many of you will know that we've already run one Streamyard, looking at how parents and teachers can work together for the highest good of our children. So you can find that on YouTube and LinkedIn. And we thought we'd build on that to look at how we can love better. So just to introduce myself, even though it's on my social media, some people may not know me very well. I run 2 learning communities for educators committed to being the change in education. One of them is called Learning Pioneers, the other is called Press Play. And since we're talking about love, I would say that play is love, and I would say that learning is love. So I'm going to pass over to you, Laura, just to say hi so everyone knows who you are.
Hello, everybody. For those of you that have joined before, welcome again. For those of you new and have never met me before, hello. It is great to have you here listening. And you know what? Whenever I do these introductions, I always feel a bit weird, a bit icky, only because it's just so weird introducing yourself. And I'm going to be honest, I think actually some of the things that I end up introducing myself as, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. It still feels a little bit weird. But yeah, so I'm Laura Greenwood. I'm an accredited psychotherapist with over 18 years experience in the mental health field now. I am the founder and clinical lead of Laura Greenwood Therapy, which is a multi-award winning specialist psychotherapy and wellbeing clinic for parents, families and children. What else am I? I'm a massive parental mental health activist committed to changing the way that parents and families are supported by themselves, by the systems that surround them, because essentially parents are what bring life within the world, and actually the world runs based on our people and how we look after ourselves. And I suppose I'm a mum, you know, I'm a mum as well to a beautiful, gorgeous, full of joy 7-year-old boy. And I won't be here talking to you now and have most of those roles without him coming into my life. And I think if I was to summarize really the main thing that I do as part of my work, which I believe is actually very relevant to our topic today, is what I essentially do is help human beings to connect with the person behind all of their roles, the I behind all of it. Because actually the most important relationship that we will ever have is the one that we have with ourselves. So I help people to connect with that, their needs, their desires, their soul, and help them to love all parts of themselves, spread more of that love around them with the connections that they have within their life, and build the most beautiful lives imaginable for themselves from a place of total authenticity. And just love is literally one of my most favourite topics to talk about within my sessions, to talk about with my gorgeous friend Becky, to talk about with anybody that will listen. So just being here to talk for 90 minutes about love, I'm like, oh my God, I'm living my best life here.
Thank you, Laura. Oh, I'm so proud to know you. What important work you're doing, and multi-award winning. I'm going to shout that out louder because the reason you've won those awards is because you love what you do and you pour love into what you're doing. So I know that's really, really well deserved. And everyone who works with you is so lucky, so lucky. And so that kind of coming together of like loving relationships. I'm just going to make a little connection with our last Streamyard, Laura. Because one thing I remember that you know that we were really touching upon was disconnect, and when disconnect happens in our lives, and you were talking about when people come to you and look to have therapy, and really what they're finding is their lives look perfect on paper or great on paper, but actually they're feeling disconnected, and you help them reconnect. So even just digging into love a little bit there, love is about connection, and you talked about connection to self. So my first question was going to be why love, but you've started to answer that a little bit. But do you want to expand on it a bit, and I'll build on that in education too? Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really, really good reflection. Oh, somebody's made a comment. Love it. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. I'm getting distracted now. So absolutely, the connection piece, and coming back to the work that I do, is the love that we have for other people. We often complicate love and think about it as just being in relation to our relationships with other people. But actually, what we're talking about here, yes, we're going to touch on relationships and all of the challenges and complexities that come with that and how we can love better in relationships. But actually, the most important relationship and the greatest love story we will ever have is the one that we have with ourselves and our relationships. Everybody that we meet, everybody we encounter, our close relationships, even the people that we walk past on the street, that connection, that relationship, that dynamic, that interaction all comes from how we look after ourselves, how we love ourselves. Our greatest love story should always be ourselves. And if we're completely and totally disconnected from ourselves, which most of us, can I just say, we are all walking around disconnected from ourselves, our true selves, our true nature, because it's scary to do that work. There's lots of reasons why we avoid coming face to face with that, as well as society kind of really taking that out of us, making us believe that the answers to all of the questions that we've got up here lie outside of us in social media, in books, when actually the true answers lie within us. And so absolutely, love is an experience within us. And I believe the more we are able to recognize that and come to believe that actually love in itself, we can never lose. It is always within us, no matter what changes within our life, and connect with that feeling, that beautiful experience of love, we can completely and totally transform our lives.
Yeah, gives us complete ownership. When we know that we're able to connect with that and that everything starts from within. I think it's Eckhart Tolle who says, get the inside right and the outside will fall into place. That gives us complete agency for our own well-being, feeling, love in our lives. And that love can then amplify from within. We can tap into it. So I'll build on that a little bit in the classroom in terms of teaching and learning as well. And by the way, everyone on LinkedIn and YouTube, we weren't sure if people were going to be able to comment because I was fiddling around with the settings. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to comment. And we love you commenting. So comment and join in. If you're listening in on LinkedIn and YouTube, I think we definitely see LinkedIn people, we know now. But why do you think love's important and how does it show up in your life? In a minute, we're going to talk about what love is. So I wrote a blog post a little while ago, Laura, called Set the Frequency of Your Classroom to Love. And when I was reflecting on my own practice, when I was teaching in the classroom, what I'd realized was the actual absolute baseline of everything I was doing in the class. And if you're an educator, you can see if you agree with me, was about my own self-connection and my connection with the children in front of me. So it was about presence. It was about compassion. It was about holding children in their unconditional, positive, high regard, so that they could see that light within them. I know on your WhatsApp, you've got the light in me sees the light in you, which I think is Rumi, which we're going to come to in a minute. But when we reflect that back to people, if we are in a state of love and lovingness and being in love, in a state of love, we can reflect that back to other people, and then we amplify love. And we were going to come to this later, but we've both been reading Vex King, and he talks about not falling in love, because that sounds somewhat disempowering. Why not instead, don't we connect to the love within ourselves and rise in love together? That feels a lot more empowering. And I'll just link that to a post I put out in the lead up to this with Simon Sinek, who's talking about relationships being growth. And ultimately, that's what love is. That's what love does. I'm here in our friendship, Laura. I'm here for my own growth, and I'm here for your growth, 111%, and that's what love does. It shows up. And therefore, also, love is challenging. I heard that in a school in Perth. Fantastic educator called Kirsty Fitz. Hi, Kirsty, if you tuned in. she said, we love our children enough to challenge them. And that really landed with me. I thought, yeah, love challenges, and love is challenging. So, and
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different ways of viewing love. It's a four-letter word with so much depth, so much meaning. And it isn't, we often think of love as this airy fairy, happy, lovely experience. And it's not. It is dark sometimes and challenging, and growth is challenging. Oh my gosh, but it is so worth it. And I tell you what, there is nothing like a relationship, especially the romantic ones, to really give you that opportunity to grow ever more into yourself. But the idea is absolutely, it should be about growth together. You know, when you're in any dynamic, there's two people in that, you know, it should be, and I know we touched on this in our last Streamyard, like a dance, like communication, everything that goes into sustaining and managing a meaningful relationship. It's a dance. It's not always a pretty dance, but it's a dance nonetheless. And it's about, I suppose it's, we need to move together. Otherwise it's not a dance. Somebody's just watching, and one person, it's just not the same experience, is it?
No. And I'm just going to share as well from the chat. I don't know whether on LinkedIn it's not showing us names, or if you're actually called LinkedIn user, but we can't see people's names as they're commenting. I don't know whether it's a glitch, but you're going to love in the comments there, Laura, someone shared, my mantra in difficult moments is to choose love. And what does it look like in this moment? And I know that in our WhatsApp messages, which have got a bit frantic this week with love, that you were sharing about love being a choice, choosing to love in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And also recognizing as well, like yourself and I, Becky, you know, we are, you know, I think you are the person that I've met that is the most committed to personal growth. You know, I've never met anybody outside of myself more committed to personal growth. And I would say you have 100% amplified my kind of deep dive into my own personal growth. And choosing love is this, it's not always, it's a choice. It's not always an easy choice. And sometimes with mantras, for example, or with affirmations or things that we want to do or believe or in ourselves or embody, it can feel like a bit like we're faking it until we're making it, until all of a sudden it's like, and I know we talked about this on our WhatsApp group this week, that actually, you know, every now and then we go, oh my God, like I'm choosing love, like I'm really embodying love. Oh my God, I'm doing it. That thing that I've wanted to do for ages. Oh my God, that whole letting go with love and compassion and seeing the good in somebody, even if they've hurt me or even if they've disappointed me in some way, and being able to still see that person from a lens of love. That is a skill. And actually, I believe it's a skill that we can all cultivate, but it's certainly not an easy one. And too much of our society is about quick fixes. Personal growth and choosing love and being able to radiate from a frequency of love is a choice that we need to make every single day, multiple times a day. But gosh, when we get there, wow, does it make life just so much more beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. It's a practice then. It's a practice, and it's a commitment to that continual growth. By the way, best compliment ever, that I'm the person you think is most into personal growth from a psychotherapist. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
a badge or an award for that.
You need an award. You need that on your website, honey. Like 100%. Like genuinely. Yeah. You amplify my personal growth.
Thank you. And you know, that's reciprocal. That's a continual kind of growth state. And it's like, I find in our love for one another, in our messaging and in our growth, we support each other through the shadow and the hard stuff and the self-reflection where it's like, oh my God, I'm playing out that thing. I've got to think about that. And we also amplify one another's light back. And that's where you get that like super growth. And that's super growth together, you know. I was thinking at the beginning of what you were sharing there as well about, okay, so I was talking before about the quotes that we've got that we'll look at in a minute about love that our lovely LinkedIn communities have shared with us. And one's from an incredible educator called Anne Van Dam. So, Anne, I don't know if you're in the chat or not, because we haven't got names kind of coming up for us. But Anne Van Dam taught me about another educator called Helen Hedges, who talks about working theories, which is a really lovely phrase. It's not misconceptions, because that kind of sounds like we're making mistakes. Working theories is like, this is what I'm beginning to learn and understand about this concept, this thing. And that's going to change over time. So the reason I bring that up is I think there are quite a lot of, I'm going to say, misconceptions around love and what love is. And therefore, we need to create some new working theories around what it actually might be. So maybe we can explore that a little bit. So putting the misconceptions bit kind of in a box for a second, because there's a few things you've touched upon that I'm like, okay, what would people say love was, and what has our experience of love been? But should we play our love game first?
Yeah.
So this is the love game. So if you grew up in the UK in the 80s, like I did, you might know of this TV program. If you didn't, don't worry, I'm going to describe it to you. So in the 80s in the UK, there was a TV program called Whack-A-Day. If you are around and you know Whack-A-Day, write in the chat and let us know. But on that TV program, there was a TV presenter called Timmy Mallet, and he used to play Mallet's Mallet. And what would happen is, we can't actually play it online, but we'll pretend we are. It was a word association game. So he had a massive foam mallet, and he would say a word like river, and the kid on the TV show would have to say something associated with river, like water. And then Laura would then say something associated with water. So we're going to do a Mallet's Mallet around love, but love's the word. What we're going to say is love is, and we're going to share words and phrases and ping backwards and forwards until we kind of stop. So anyone with us, you can share in the chat as well what you think love is. What's your working theory around love, words and phrases? Right, you first, Laura.
Oh, the meaning of life.
Okay, love is presence.
Intimacy.
Oh, vulnerability.
Connection.
Compassion.
Respect.
Unconditional.
Choosing.
Boundaried.
Growth.
Divine.
Oh, deep.
Wise.
Warm.
Expansive.
Everything.
Slow.
Also fast.
I was thinking the same thing. And incremental.
Yeah. And steady.
Consistent.
Safe.
Grounded.
Exciting.
Heart-led.
Enduring.
Gentle.
Soft. We might have had that already.
Brave.
Yeah. Which brings me on to vulnerability.
Right, should we explore some of those a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What's calling to you first?
Say that again, lovely.
What's calling to you first to share on?
Yeah, just just talking about the whole brave and vulnerability. So one of my favorite, I don't even know what you'd call her, I suppose, not a guru, but somebody that I follow, somebody that I love Brené Brown. I love Brené Brown's work on vulnerability. To love another person is to be vulnerable. And I think and believe and know that for any connection to another person, you've got to be vulnerable. You've got to be brave enough to be vulnerable. And that is so challenging for people to do. The amount of people that are in love somebody, but are afraid to really show 100% of themselves without fear that they're going to be abandoned or rejected is huge. And so often people dim themselves or parts of themselves in order to fit in with that person or to maintain that connection or that relationship, because they feel that that's the only way that they will be loved. Now, that's not to say that your vulnerability is something that everybody should have access to. It's something that, and again, Brené shares this beautiful quote of share your vulnerability with those that have earned the right to receive it when you've built up enough trust. And the reason why I say enough trust is because there's always a risk. There's always a risk in loving another person. That's, it wouldn't be brave otherwise, that we are going to share parts of ourselves, our vulnerability, and absolutely the risk is that is going to be rejected. But it's about recognizing that actually good enough, trust enough is enough. It has to be. Otherwise, we will continuously close our doors, close our heart, and potentially prevent us from having some of the most beautiful, most meaningful connections that we possibly could have if we just allowed ourselves to open our heart, to be vulnerable, but also as well to allow other people to be vulnerable with us. And for me, I actually do believe it needs to be a two-way process, because you can't have one person sharing a load of vulnerability and the other person doesn't. It's about feeling safe in a dynamic to share vulnerability in order to be seen in our wholeness, to be accepted within our wholeness. Gosh, we are all craving that deep down. And so for me, I often think that this is a lot of the challenges that I often see within relationships and within love. I see people that love each other deeply, dearly, but there are things getting in the way, because there is nothing quite like a romantic relationship to hold a mirror up to all of the psychological wounds that you have got inside of you that still need to be healed. And it gives us this opportunity that we can either see that, we can see it and we can go, right, I'm going to take this opportunity, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to grow through this, or I am going to close my heart off to love because this feels far too scary. And what that does is that limits the relationship. No relationship in love, no dynamic in love can reach its fullest potential if any one of those parties have closed themselves off to vulnerability.
Yeah, so much in that. I was going to link before, but I'll link it in now, about the way Carl Jung describes falling in love. And that, I think we could go into different types of love, because I think there are stages of, I'm hesitant to use the word evolution, but I'm kind of in the process of our growing and our healing, our wounding through loving more. There's a stage beyond where we are just loving, which is the kind of thing we were talking about before, when you connect to that love within yourself. And you feel that love within yourself, and you're able to emanate that and just be in that state of love and hold that forever longer and deeper together, those two things together. And then when those things come in that would have hurt you, they don't hurt as much. They bounce off. So a couple of things I want to link in with Jungian psychology, actually. A while ago on LinkedIn, I put a post out that we were riffing on. I asked you about, and a few other people, about what it means to have a healthy ego. And my therapist had the best answer that it wouldn't have even occurred to me. But she said, it's not a hard thing. It's not a soft thing. It's the ability to bounce back. And that's stuck with me ever since, because I think the more that we open up to vulnerability and the more that we heal those wounds and become more loving, the quicker we bounce back. And there's less to bounce back from. And eventually, there's not even that wound there to have to bounce back. But Jung says when we fall in love, when we think we're falling in love, we think we fall in love with somebody because of all of these conscious traits we see in them. Like they're really kind and they're really funny and we share the same values and same interests. But Jung said that what's actually going on is that our shadow is sensing the other person's shadow, and the shadow always wants to be revealed because it's trying to make you whole. So you're actually projecting shadow. Number one, you're projecting shadow. So often, let's say in childhood, you've been asked to repress certain parts of yourself, or certain parts of yourself weren't okay. You meet someone with those parts and you're like, oh my God, I'm in love. But actually, you're projecting onto them. So the process of falling in love is actually like a shadow magnetism. It's like,
that's deep. That's deep. So what happens then, do you think, when two people come together? And this is just a question, but let's say, people like us, totally committed to personal growth. Maybe there is this gold standard where essentially we've worked on all our stuff, maybe not. What happens then when two people come together in a healed state, or more healed?
Great question. Because according to the therapists that I've worked with and the stuff I've looked into, so actually this is really interesting. I think this is fascinating for romantic relationships across the board. And I also think this relates to work relationships and friendships, because everything, I think, is a mirror. So our shadow's always being reflected back to us. And for me, the best way I can move forward is by taking total radical responsibility for my life and everything around me. So when I'm seeing things reflected back, it's like, okay, what's that trying to teach me? What is it in me that's resonating with that? What haven't I integrated yet? Rather than projecting and blaming, integrating and reflecting. But so Jung, if we've got Jungian therapists here, please correct me if I'm fluffing any of this. But this is what I understand from the therapists I've worked with and the reading I've done. That when you fall in love with someone, you meet in your shadow and your light, but it's your shadow that's magnetizing and wanting to be revealed. So you meet, you fall in love, you have your kind of honeymoon period, and then you start to piss each other off, and the shadow starts to reveal itself. Now, one of several things can happen. Either you stay with that person and you don't get conscious about those shadow patterns, and they continue to play out and annoy, you annoy each other. Then one of two things can happen. You either stay together and just hate each other till death do us part, because you don't want to separate and look at your shadow because you're projecting it, or you break up, or you work through that shadow. So you're in a couple, let's see, me with somebody else, I work through my shadow, they work through theirs, and you rise and integrate your shadow together. And once that's happened, once you have two whole people, you either continue like in your complete, Jung called it individuation, two individuated people. I'm in love in my own wholeness, they're in love in their own wholeness, and you come together in just complete honor and respect and love. Or you separate and you move on and you meet someone else.
Do the same thing again. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is incredible. But in that, essentially, it's about both parties taking responsibility for what it is that other person is mirroring back to them. Like,
Yeah.
and that's another thing, isn't it, in terms of love in relationships, that it and the dance, you know, it's about both taking responsibility, both taking accountability of, I am choosing to love this person, I am choosing to maintain, sustain this connection, whilst also being in their own individual, you know, not getting lost in the relationship. Too many people kind of, and that's codependency, right? Almost getting lost or feeling enmeshed within a relationship. So how can I have this relationship mirror back to me what I need to work on, recognize what that is, take accountability and responsibility for that, do what I need to do to maintain this relationship without losing myself to it, and also always staying connected to, I am whole as I am. I don't need this person to complete me. Therefore, if they were to leave my life, I would likely grieve. That would be difficult. But ultimately, I am already whole. I've not lost a part of me because I was already whole. Yeah.
Ideally, but I don't think many of us feel like that. And I
No.
don't think so. The one thing we were going to talk about was love and attachment, and what the difference is between love and attachment. And you'll probably know better than I do on this, but from what I understand, 50% of the adult population has an anxious or an avoidant attachment. I would have associated that with me too until I started really working on myself. But that's 50% of people, Laura. That's half
I would
of
say
us.
more. I would say more. Genuinely, I would say more. I would say that that is underrepresented.
Yeah, and I would also say it's nuanced. I don't think, from what I've observed within myself and others, you can lean more towards one, but have elements of other ones, is my feeling, you know. So you could be mainly kind of anxious attachment, but also have some avoidant stuff going on.
Massive. Yeah.
But this is problematic, and I think it's problematic not just in romantic relationships, although that's where it obviously manifests most strongly, but in work relationships. Like, it terrifies me a little bit to think of all of our beautiful schools around the world and adults walking around unaware that they have attachment things going on, you know, and it's all playing out. You see it, you know, this kind of push-pull dynamic. So should we dip into that a little bit? Kind of attachment, how we can heal attachments and how they link to love, and how they fit into love. Over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about this stuff. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about within therapy sessions and just within my life, really. So 100% people can essentially, I suppose it comes back to the whole, when we meet people, we're attracted to shadow, right? So I believe different people can bring out different kind of attachment styles within us. So we may typically identify with, I am, my wounding is anxious attachment, but then there's certain people or certain behaviors that maybe people engage in that would trigger more of an avoidant reaction. Because ultimately, and I think probably a really good way of looking at it is, we're all wanting to come, the craving is coming back to wholeness, right? The craving is coming back to ourselves, to feeling completely and totally good enough just as we are. We don't know that's what we're doing, and we think we need relationships to complete us, because when we were growing up, of course, we needed attachment relationships in our life for us to survive. So all of the stuff that comes out and plays out in adult relationships comes from a childhood place whereby we needed these attachment relationships within our life to allow us to survive the life that we are living. The thing is, we continue to play those out into adulthood, even though we no longer need, as an adult, those relationships to survive. The body doesn't know that, and especially, God, we're all walking around, a lot of us, in these really unconscious places, being triggered, and these kind of responses, these natural responses, if something in our environment reminds us of some of those experiences when we were younger, come out and we engage in these patterns. And a really typical dynamic is absolutely the push and pull that you talked about, Becky. This whole, the anxious attachment, like, you know, nagging, or, you know, going, you know, talk to me, share your vulnerability, tell me what you need, this is what I need, come on, give me what I need, and kind of going, and then the anxious goes, whoa, and steps right back, and it's like this all of the time, engaging in this dance where nobody's having their needs met. But regardless of whether you're anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, whatever we want to call it, both parties deep down want to be able to be seen in their wholeness, be loved, be accepted for who they are. But both don't know how to get those needs met without engaging in certain conditions, or they're afraid essentially of exposing parts of themselves and being rejected or being abandoned in some way. So I suppose what often can happen is, so this is coming on to kind of the difference between love and attachment. So love is a feeling within us. Actually, love should not be controlled, and neither should people. But when we get into attachment wounds, what we do, because remember, we're going back to childhood, I need to do this in order to maintain this connection. I need to do this to avoid losing this connection, because I'm so afraid of losing this connection because I love them deeply. And ultimately, I'm worried if I lose this person, I lose a part of myself. And oh my God, who am I then if I lose part of myself? All of that, all of the narrative going on. Is what we do is we try to control it. We try to grasp onto it. We try and do everything that we possibly can do in order to avoid our worst fears, either being seen in our total rawness or losing the thing that we believe is where love lies. As soon as we come into recognizing I am whole as myself, I do not need another person to complete me. I do not need a person, an attachment, in order to help me to survive. That attachments are meant to enrich our life, not complete us. This is how we move more into a secure attachment, and a recognition that as much as it would be sad if I were to lose this connection, I can handle it. I am okay. And whilst I may have lost that person, I've not lost love, because it resides within me. That was a really long answer, Horn. I hope it kind of answered it.
It's a really good answer. I'm going to thread in a few comments in the chat because I'm excited, because Kim's here, who's my co-pilot in Press Play. Kim, I was saying play is love earlier on, and she's saying how much she's loving joining in. It's so good to have you here, Kim. And just the recognition as well of like how hard the journey of shadow work is in conjunction with a partner. But also so worth it. Yes, 100%. And actually, there's a whole thing like, what's the cost if we do and what's the cost if we don't? And the more we bury stuff and the more we pretend some of this stuff isn't here, and the more we kind of create, again, our persona and stick to that, the more detached we become. And we practice detachment, and we practice not loving. And that, you know, that's just going to keep going. So why not go in the opposite direction? So I was thinking, Laura, we're going to talk a little bit about strategies about how to love better, but it might be worth looking at strategies about how to heal the anxious avoidant dynamic, and whichever attachment style we most identify with, how we start to heal that within ourselves. I got shed loads to say on that, but over to you first.
Oh, honey, yeah. And can I just say, and what I really, really, really want to kind of make, just because I want to take the shame out of this. Like, I'm a psychotherapist. I reckon I've been committed to personal growth now, and like really deeply committed to personal growth. More so, obviously, since meeting you, Becky. But essentially, since my son was born, he was my catalyst for personal growth and healing. I am working on my stuff all of the time. We are never fully healed. And whilst I would say in the main, I am securely attached 100%, if certain things happen in my environment, it still triggers me, and I can go back into old attachment patterns. And I would say I am somebody that tends to be more in the pecking, anxious category, which kind of like sometimes sends people, miles away. And I suppose I just really wanted to say that, because absolutely we can talk about how to heal this stuff, how to work on it. And I just want you to know that we're never, ever, none of us are ever fully healed. And certain people and certain experiences and behaviors will still trigger us no matter how much we've done this work. So just to kind of like say, we're not here kind of going, yeah, we're committed to this, but do you know what, at the end of the day, we're flawed human beings that essentially also have an ego that's bruised, or we also have things inside of us that certain experiences in our internal environment will trigger old wounds within us. But it gives us that opportunity to work on it. And probably what's different maybe about Becky and I, because we're so committed to personal growth, is we're curious to it. We notice it, we own it, we say, hands up, this is my stuff coming up here. I know this is my stuff. I'm owning it. I'm a flawed human being. I'm modeling being a flawed human being here. And I'm committed to taking ownership of it and working on that and recognizing what's mine and what's somebody else's. So I suppose that kind of brings us on to the fact that, how do we work on this? We've got to witness it. We've got to be conscious to it. We've got to be able to recognize and be curious to it and go, wow, that was interesting, that is making me feel like this, or it's making me feel ungrounded, or it's making me feel like I feel uncertain, and this uncertainty is making me anxious, and I feel like I need to get more answers because I feel so uncertain. And then, and behaviorally, I'm seeking that certainty, I'm seeking that control, really recognizing what it is that's going on in our environment, what it is that's bringing up for us internally, emotionally, physically, the thoughts and the behavioral patterns, trying as much as we can to kind of sit with that before kind of engaging in behavior that is driven from those kind of triggers. Very, very hard to do, though, by the way. And I would always advocate for, by the way, this is really, really hard to do by yourself. If you can, seek the support of a therapist to talk this through and help you to understand how you can work on those wounds to move forward, to do things differently. I would also say, it's going back to something that you mentioned earlier, Becky, and one of the LinkedIn comments about the shadow work in conjunction with other people. I genuinely believe there's only so much of this work that we can do on attachment wounds by ourselves. I actually think we actually need to work on the only thing sometimes that will really help us to really see how we're triggered, how we're activated, and then feel safe enough within that relationship, which requires somebody else taking accountability and responsibility and creating a place of safety for us to be able to work through those wounds together in order to heal and grow and evolve together, whatever our kind of attachment dynamic is. So that's just some of my initial thoughts.
Yes, Laura, all of that. And there's nothing I love more than interacting with someone who, like I was thinking as you were sharing that, metacognition, meta heart, meta soul, having that meta awareness of around our reactions, responsives, becoming aware of our patterns, becoming aware of what's in our shadow. If you're not aware of what's in your shadow yet, look at your parents and see the behaviors that you're not so fond of in them. You might find that you're doing some of those too. Super uncomfortable. But all of what you're saying, it's starting to build that awareness. And I'm thinking a little bit, there's two things I'm thinking, probably more as I get into sharing some thinking back. But one is doing that with a safe person. For me, when you're a safe person, when you're able to self-reflect like that, when you begin to be aware of those patterns and the impact that they can have, and you can take ownership for that, and you know when that's playing out, and you can be that kind of metacognitive about it, and you can say, oh, do you know what? I think this thing is happening for me, and I think that relates to that thing that I've been trying to shift, but it's just showing up again, so I trust people who are able to do that. Those are the people I like to hang around with, because I know they're going to own their shit, and I know they're not going to project it onto me. There's a coach that we've worked with in Learning Pioneers called James Adu, utterly brilliant. And he says, an unexamined leader isn't worth following. But I would say an unexamined person isn't worth hanging out with, because I don't know that you're going to be safe. And I don't know that you're not going to blame whatever's happening onto me and behave in ways that will be damaging without realizing it.
100%, 100%. And actually, and also, I suppose this comes back to the whole loving compassion. I'm much better at this now, this recognition when other people are essentially shutting down and avoiding their shit and projecting, oh God, I just swore, onto other people.
Okay, my LinkedIn. I like swearing.
And projecting. I sense it a mile off. And I used to see that as a problem with me. I'd done something wrong. And now what I recognize is that that's all about you and your stuff, and kind of it's just a sign that person's on their own journey of growth. They're at a different place of growth to me. I let you go with love and kind of take the blame off myself. That's so important. I think we take often too much responsibility and go, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Maybe I overshared. Maybe I should have handled that differently. And yeah, you know what? We make mistakes, we're human beings. But actually, if we're in the presence of a safe person, they will see that, accept that, listen to you, and actually be open to that rather than go, whoa, shut down, that's it. No, not for me. And I've spent way too much of my life in friendship dynamics and relationships like that to keep doing that to myself, because it's really dysregulating, and that's when we start to dim parts of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think everything you've described there, so many people will relate to, and that's part of the sometimes what's been modeled to us in childhood, is taking that over responsibility and trying to fix things. There's a brilliant friend and healer I work with in Bali called Therese, and she says unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional access. And I think that's so gold. One of the words we shared with when we were talking about love was boundaries, and Brené Brown talks a lot about boundaries too, and how that's one of the most loving things you can do for another person and for yourself, to create that clarity. But how often are we encouraged to even know what our needs are, number one, and number two, have a high enough self-esteem to feel like we're worth those needs, and number three, articulate them clearly with love without triggering. I mean,
oh my God, right. And these are skills. This is the reason why there are so many issues within relationships. Gosh, I'm never going to be out of a job. Because we were never ever taught these skills, and it's for me it's a big part of what I do. The reason why I do what I do, because I'm like, if I can help parents, if I can help adults to do this more effectively, to model more effectively to their children, or even if you don't have children, if you have influence over children in any way, never underestimate the impact that your behavior has on other people. It's about this for me is why this conversation is so important. Modeling healthy love, modeling owning your shit, taking accountability, taking responsibility, what's mine, what's yours, kind of being able to, and that's hard, you need to do the inner work in order to do that, to understand what is it that I need for safety, for security, that is reasonable, that is not overly anxious, that it also isn't the opposite way where it's also so autonomous that essentially you're practically not in a relationship, and again, that's navigating that within that particular dynamic, to then communicate that for the other person to do the same, to recognize, can we make this work? Can we make it work? And we can't always, actually. And this was something that we talked about as well already, Becky, that actually sometimes it's okay to, and Kim, you've mentioned it beautifully, let them go with love. We are just not compatible. We just are never going to be on the same page, you know, for whatever reason that might be. And it's recognizing it's not a failure in any way if it didn't work. And I think all we can do is do that, all of that stuff that we've just talked about, to the best of our ability. And even if we love that person dearly, love isn't enough. Actually, a healthy, dynamic relationship, it needs more than love. Gosh, you can have deep, deep love for somebody and they treat you terribly. That does not mean that you stay in that relationship.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of that comes down to also knowing when that point is to create space and walk away. And there's a guy called Zach Bush, Zach. He's really interesting. He does like podcasts on, he knows a lot about biology and nutrition, and anyway, really interesting guy. So I was listening to a podcast with him talking about those things, but then he ended up talking about his relationship with his ex-wife and how they'd got to a point where she'd realized in the relationship she wanted to go in a different direction or a certain direction. And he was talking about loving her enough to let her go. And he was talking about how it was the most painful, hard thing he'd done because he loved her and wanted to be with her. And at the same time, completely freeing because he loved her so much. He wanted the best for her in her life. And that's what made me think as well about attachment, because love isn't control. It isn't holding on. It isn't stifling people. One of the quotes you put in, Laura, talked about lover's freedom. Was that Bex King?
I think so. Oh my God. I was like, I went down a rabbit hole of love quotes as soon as
you put quite a few quotes in there, Laura.
I put a lot in. Yeah, I got a lot of favourite quotes.
Love, unconditional love, no conditions, supposed to be freeing. Can we love someone enough for them to have total freedom? And what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that song that we love, that People Are Water. But also as well, what, you know, those lyrics are so beautiful. So people are water, they need to be free. They need to move to where they want to be. We cannot be keepers of anyone's key. You have to love enough to set them free. But it also talks about how, you know, that there will be a time, and I think this will really speak to a lot of people, whereby for the right person, you don't have to beg for their time. For the right person, you don't have to beg for their time. You are, and I'm getting emotional even thinking about this, gosh, if everybody just recognized that they were just beautiful, whole, so worthy of the deepest, most unconditional love, and that you don't need to dim yourself in any way in order to receive that. You are so worthy of somebody's time. And relationships, they freaking take time. If anybody is thinking, oh yeah, I'm in this, I'm just in it for the fun bits, I'm just in it for that, I'm in it for the other, or it should just kind of run on itself, I'm sorry, you need to go and do the work. Because actually, if you really love and care about somebody, you need to make effort with them. You need to give time and energy to that. Otherwise, just be on your own. Like that's my view on it.
Yeah, mic drop, Laura. Say it how it is. I love it. Okay, let's segue then with that into ways that we can love better, ways that we can show love, and ways that we can make that effort with other people and commit to showing the people around us that we love them. Because just kind of talking a bit about our journey together, Laura, we never told everyone how we met, and we've known each other for what? 13, 14 months now? Maybe a bit longer.
And everybody's like, I thought you were going to say years. It's like, no, not that long. Can you
just like
it?
Think how much we've grown in that time together, Laura.
No.
But what was I going to say about that? What was I saying, Laura? About loving better.
We were talking about ways that we can cultivate and learn to love better. And then you started saying about the story about how we got together and how our friendship has developed, really. But it's probably also worth recognizing all of this stuff that we're talking about. Me and Becky have done this. Like, we have 100% activated and triggered each other, and we have owned it. and we've owned it, and we've talked about it, and we know we could say anything to each other and that we're safe. We know we can also own our stuff if ever we have said something that we're like, on reflection, maybe didn't handle that in the best way. But also as well, we feel really, really safe to share our needs with each other, knowing the other person is going to hear that and respect that without running away or getting defensive. That in any relationship is super, super rare. So when you find relationships like that in your life, oh my God, be grateful for them. Share with them how much you love, you adore them, you know, and recognize more of the love that you love, the more of that love that makes you feel good, whole in yourself, enriches your life, supports you to grow. More of this, please. The more you create relationships like that, the more likely you are going to create more relationships like that within your life. And the more those relationships that do not fit that, let's call it criteria, they will fall away and you will have no time for it.
Yes. It's like you read my mind. That's kind of where I was going. But just to build on what you were saying about friendship as well, about that kind of grapple when you've kind of accidentally upset each other or kind of triggered something. When you work through that with someone, like we have done several times, in a just very lovely, loving, honest way, that builds trust and depth. You know, it's kind of, and that's where you get that deep love in a relationship. Because I could share anything with you. I know you wouldn't judge me. I know you wouldn't push back. I know you'd try to understand me, because we've held those things together. So that's one thing. And then everything you were saying about the word discernment coming to mind. I've put quite a few posts out on LinkedIn about we've talked a lot as well about red flags, green flags, yellow flags in relationships. What am I yes for? What am I no for? I've written pages out in my journal. These are the kind of friendships I want. You know, I want to be met. I want reciprocity. I want consistency. I want love in all of my relationships. And my group is close and loving and tight. And my life is amazing because of it. Relationships are everything. It starts with us, our inner world, and then relationships are the circle around that make the difference between life being nurturing, growth-orientated, loving, and being draining and a bit of a nightmare, really, when you're dealing with some people, you know. So what, how much do you love yourself, you know? And that there was one thing that really helped with that for me, actually, was in I was going to a sister circle. You know, you can like meet up with incredible women like once a month, and you share really safely about stuff that's going on. And there was a lady who shared, this was ages ago, before we knew each other, Laura, in another lifetime. You know? And she was sharing and talking about some of the relationships in her life and how they were toxic. But she didn't spend time with those people anymore, she said, because I either had to try and help them or spend time with my kids. And she was like, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to be nurturing and loving my kids. And as she was sharing that, I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, I don't have physical children, but I've got an inner child who's standing up for her, you know? So that just flipped everything for me. And I've ever since then made everything in my life a priority for my inner child. Like, is this safe for my inner child? Is my inner child going to be loved? Is my inner child going to be able to play and find joy here? And if the answer is yes, I'll stick with it. If the answer is no, that's the boundary. So that might be useful to some people, because it's like when we come to look at our own lives and our own self-esteem and our own being, sometimes we find it hard to put ourselves first. But if you imagine yourself as a kid, you know, and what you do for that kid, you know, that kind of somehow reframes it. It reframed it for me. Yeah,
definitely. And I think working with a lot of parents, often the reason why they come to therapy to work on their wounds, it's usually the initial motivation is not so much for them. It's actually because they want to be better for their children. And then what they do is they recognize, it was about me all along. And actually how I show up for my kids, that just follows. Because how we show up for all of our relationships in our life, including how we parent, how we educate, it starts with how we look after and how we treat ourselves. We cannot teach effective communication to our children without learning those skills ourselves. We cannot teach them how to love themselves without loving ourselves. Children are incredibly intuitive, and they notice inconsistencies and incongruence. And actually, this is a nod to how can we love better? Congruence and consistencies. And so what happens is children pick up on those. We are, as adults, able to pick up on those. But often what happens through our attachment wounds, children are taught out of looking at that. No, you didn't hear that. Or they see something and it's different from what they've heard. So what they do is they start to question themselves. They gaslight themselves, essentially, to use that term. And so what they do is they go, I can't trust myself. I can't trust my intuition. I can't trust that what I'm seeing here doesn't quite match what I'm hearing. They must be right. And also, ultimately, I need you to help me to survive. So we switch it off. It never goes away. We can always reconnect with that. But the ways that we can build healthy, beautiful, loving relationships that help another person, an inner child, to feel safe is consistency, congruence. So what you say matches what you do. Otherwise, it's incredibly confusing, really confusing, and creates anxiety, even for the avoidance. It can kind of really send them into a spiral of like, what is even going on here? That anxiety, I suppose what they tend to do is they tend to shut off. So I suppose the anxiety is central to both attachment wounds, but what avoidance tend to do is go, whoa, this isn't safe, I'm off. Whereas anxious, whoa, this isn't safe, let me try more, let me take more responsibility on, let me do more to try and repair this. And actually the secure place is there's inconsistencies here, there's incongruence here, I'm going to talk about that, I'm going to share that, but this needs to be met with safety, with love, with curiosity, rather than defensiveness. And that's hard, because what that means is the other person has to be able to regulate their own emotions, to be able to show up from that place. And I often find differences actually in the way that, often women and men communicate, which I think is probably quite helpful actually, just to kind of recognize it, because sometimes women like to resolve things like right away, don't like going to bed on an argument, all of that. Sometimes men, in often my experience, and I'm sweeping generalization here, do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely, please, don't take this as gospel. There are absolutely differences between all of us, but men tend to like to go away to think about things, to reflect on things, to then come back to have a more grounded conversation about it. So it's about recognizing how each other works. But when you do that, what it avoids is one or each person making assumptions or making the situation worse, essentially.
Yes, to all of that. So there were two things I wanted to go to. One was about the articulation. And I was sharing with you when we were planning for this, Laura, a little model I'm coming up with in my head, as I do. So I'm going to I have to describe the pre-model to describe the model, so I credit it properly. But the co-author of the book that I've already written, not the one I'm writing now, is someone called Guy Claxton. And he's come up with a model called the Learning River. And the Learning River looks at learning in the classroom. And at the top of the river are all the subjects or the kind of content that we're learning. And the next layer is the literacies and the skills that we need to do that. And right at the bottom of the Learning River, there's probably even more depths, but for the moment, at the bottom of the Learning River is the habits of mind and the learning habits we learn and develop in the process of teaching and learning. So it has things like empathy and curiosity and persistence right at the bottom. So we're kind of enculturating students as we develop learning in schools into this bottom part of the river, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's happening. We better be intentional, but it's happening anyway. So in what you're describing, that's Guy's learning river. I'm going to create a new learning river now. So on the top of this learning river is the words and the articulation of our needs, questions, like sharing, like experiences. So there's probably books on all of these, but Nonviolent Communication is a brilliant book for learning how to communicate and take ownership for your own experience. So it's learning to communicate. It's being articulate, using language. Underneath that are the emotions that sit underneath it. So our wounding, our triggers, shame, guilt, all our shadow emotions, they're all set underneath that articulation. So that's where you're kind of saying children pick up on things. They pick up on our tone. They pick up on whether we're regulated or not. And I reckon right at the bottom is energetics and the energy in the room. And children sense those two things. So it doesn't matter if you're, in fact, adults do. It doesn't matter if your words are spot on and you're saying just the perfect thing. The emotions and the energy underneath that and the regulation is going to be felt and sensed. So I think we need to look at all three layers of that model.
Absolutely. And actually what it's reminding me of, oh my God. So when I did my original psychotherapy training in CBT, so you get marked, you get observed in your practice and you get marked using this absolutely terrible form called a CTSR. Any fellow CBT trainees or psychotherapists watching will probably have trauma from that whole experience. And and it something it talked about, so you get ticks for things like loads of different skills, but empathy, for example. And and I remember there was this original training manual, and it kind of touched on like empathy dots, almost like regular kind of like almost like empathetic point to make here, empathetic point to make here, completely and totally inauthentic. So anybody can go, that sounds really difficult for you. And anybody can go, oh my gosh, that sounds really, really, really difficult for you. I'm hearing how hard and overwhelming that's feeling right now. Totally different. So it's about recognizing when we are saying things that we really believe it. So there's no point, for example, making a statement that you don't believe. There's no point whatsoever, because people feel that inauthenticity. And this is the difference between a bad therapist, mediocre therapist, and a great therapist. Incredible therapists are so and this is why kind of doing the inner work, for me, it's a vocation, our work. We have to do our inner work because it's what makes us so exceptional about what we do, because we shouldn't just be listening to what people are saying. We should be hearing what they're not saying. We should be feeling their energy, and we should be responding from that place, so that we give people not what they even think that they need, but what they actually need, that they didn't even realize themselves because they are unconscious to it. So the idea is that we support them to become more conscious, to be able to step through the world and make more conscious choices themselves. So that whole energetic, like you said, we can all pick up on it, but the amount of people that are paying lip service and going around and saying the things that they've read in a book that they think are the right things to do. And this is that difference between gathering knowledge, this is what I need to do to sustain my relationship, versus embodying that knowledge. And this is the same with, I am reading about love. I've read Vetkin's book. I've read Young Pueblo's book. I know how to love better. I know all of that. No, that's not enough. We've got to embody it. And the way we embody it is we learn to love ourselves. This is why self-love has to be at the center of everything, because if we cannot do that, how can we really effectively love another person? We may love them, but I honestly don't believe we can really super in our greatest capacity effectively love other people if we don't love ourselves.
Yeah. And you know what you were just describing, Laura, what that sounded like to me was like, I was like, but I do that as a friend. You know, imagine if all friends did that for each other. If we all became really good space holders who were empathetic and curious and tried to build connection, you know, and understanding, you know, and that, like, when we do that, we're healing for one another. You know, in our friendship, I have healed because you've either held space for something, or you've reflected back how challenging something is in my process, or I've shared something related to my own growth and process and say, oh, I'm noticing that this is happening now, and you've celebrated it with me. You know, imagine if we could all be those people for one another. You know, that's how to learn to love better. I'm going to just pop in because I want to, because I figured out how to put things on the stage with us.
Yay!
So this is one of our quotes. We asked everybody what they thought love was. And just because you're talking about self-love, this is really good. So Kat Place, an incredible head teacher in Wales, in Jubilee Park, who actually I'm going to be doing a Streamyard with. That's perfect. On Monday, she's doing a doctorate on looking at well-being in schools and in leadership, creating the conditions to thrive. That's what it's titled. Anyway, she shared this quote, and it's from Glennon Doyle, who is like kind of as amazing as Brené Brown in my mind. But I'll read it out, just, you know, so we've got it all in front of us. So I love myself now. Self-love means that I have a relationship with myself built on trust and loyalty. I trust myself to have my own back, so my allegiance is to the voice within. I'll abandon everyone else's expectations of me before I abandon myself. I'll disappoint everyone else before I'll disappoint myself. I'll forsake all others before I'll forsake myself. Me and myself, we are till death do us part. What the world needs is more women who have quit fearing themselves and start trusting themselves. And what the world needs is masses of women who are entirely out of control. Hell yes!
Hell yes to that girl. And people, yes. Not just women, people, men. Oh my gosh, darlings, we love you dearly. Please do this work too. Please do this work too. It cannot just be down to us women, although unfortunately, and I'm talking about this with love, with my husband. We have, been married to a psychotherapist. We communicate the hell out of life, and he is very loving and accepting of that. And he has grown. He has absolutely grown but I suppose I've guided the way because I have been so conscious about this is what we need to do to make it work. We've not rested on our laurels, but if it was up to him, I don't think he would. I don't think he'd have done it. And I know there are so many men, women out there. We all just want to be loved. We all just want to be seen in our wholeness. And, there are some shocking male suicide statistics, and I genuinely believe the reasons why those are the cases because men do not feel safe to share their vulnerability, to be seen in their rawness, in their wholeness, and to step out of the provider role, the perfect role, the one that has all of the answers. I think what they need is to feel safe in order to step out of that, to be truly vulnerable and to see that they are lovable just as we all are, just as they are, regardless of what they do or do not achieve or how they do or do not show up.
Thank you, Laura. That's so beautifully said. And we didn't say on our last Streamyard, but our last Streamyard was on International Men's Day
It
for that exact
was.
reason. And we got so wrapped up in our chat and what we were sharing, we didn't say that, but it was intentionally chosen for exactly the reasons you're sharing there. And talk about, you know, childhood and cultural conditioning. Like, we've all had a bit of a dud across the board for different reasons. You know, and it'll be different in families, different with different cultures. But by and large, I mean, let's just start with boys don't cry. Not exactly helpful, that. And I cannot imagine being brought up, being told, well, actually I can. I was told I shouldn't be sensitive. I was told that a lot. But I think that happens to men more than it does to women. Don't be sensitive. Don't cry. You've got to be the strong one. Like, that's a big burden. Like, you know, that's a big piece of conditioning to unpick and unwind and let go of.
And unfortunately, and I suppose because we walk in circles whereby you know, we tend to spend time with much more conscious people, men, women. We don't sit, but it absolutely, it's still going on. You know, the whole man up mentality, toxic masculinity, it is still going on. And it takes, whilst we absolutely, you know, we can't stop that, prevent, but for me, it's about speaking to those people that want to change that narrative, that are committed to changing that narrative. And I suppose ultimately the frequency of love, that frequency, the more of us that step into that, the more of us that heal, the more of us that go, no, to that old story. That story doesn't suit me. I don't want to feed into that. I don't want to continue that. What can I do in my power to change that? Essentially me breaking the mold. The more we all individually have influence to change how men and women grow up, seeing themselves, looking after themselves, loving themselves and loving others as well.
Yes, we have 15 minutes, Laura. So I think we should segue into how to, you know, the kind of the practical things that we can do. But I just happen to have one more quote that I just love, these coincidences of when you're going to be looking at something and then you're reading something, you're like, oh, that is just so perfect for tomorrow. So I'm reading this book by a guy called Richard Rudd. It's called The Gene Keys, Embracing Your Higher Purpose. And basically the way it's set up, it's got the 64 gene keys and they all work from a shadow frequency to a gift to a siddhi, like to an enlightened state. And like, I am fascinated by this book. Everything I'm reading, I'm like, oh my God, yes. And like kind of looking at where I'm still healing stuff and stuff I've been, and in some things where I'm like, oh, I used to be like that, but I don't do that anymore. So that feels really good. Anyway, just happens that the one I'm reading about, the siddhi, is universal love. So there was a quote in it that stood out to me about the wound. And I found this so interesting because it's got the word wound in it and the word wound, which are obviously spelt the same, but pronounced differently. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So if you have the courage to honor and listen to the wound within, everything will change for you. You will discover that if something is wound around you, constricting you, it must have a purpose, and that its purpose is to unwind. Thus, as you face your pain through the gift of acceptance, the wound begins to unwind and another higher destiny opens up before you. So that relates to the healing of those wounds and the sitting with those things we've been told about ourselves that aren't true.
So
that's
absolutely.
my first pitch for how to love better. But you've talked so much, and we've talked so much about loving yourself first. How to love yourself first, hold yourself through those things, those lies you were told about yourself when you were younger. And you mentioned shame. Shame is such a debilitating emotion. What if you could just forgive yourself? What if you could just forgive yourself and let go? So those are some of my pitches. How do you think we can learn to love ourselves better?
to learn to love ourselves better. I actually think in general, just recognizing what that feeling of love feels like. So, this whole thing is about how can we love better? How can we love others better? How can we love ourselves better? The feeling of love is something that is within us. It is a beautiful feeling. And actually, we can feel that for so many different things when we kind of get out of the noise. So in sunset, sunrises, the light of the moon, in breathtaking experiences, in the belly laugh of our children, in being so proud of ourselves for something that we've achieved, in connecting to nature. So I would just say to it, how do you cultivate more love? Just feel it more, connect to it more, know what that feeling feels like. And it is like this grounding feeling of inner peace. If you can cultivate that and you can connect to that multiple times on a daily basis, you're going to live a beautiful life. You're going to live a beautiful life. And then I think, how can I commit to loving myself better? Absolutely. Recognizing I am worthy of understanding what it is that I need. I am worthy of communicating what those needs are, even if those needs are not going to be met. What needs can I meet myself? What needs do I need, or what would I like to communicate from other people? And absolutely recognizing and being curious too when things are happening in our environment, what that's bringing up for us, giving ourselves the time and the permission that we are worthy of time, money, energy, whatever it might be, to work on that. And that actually your life will massively transform when you gift yourself the gift of whatever you need to love yourself fiercely, completely, warts and all. We've all got bits about ourselves that we don't particularly like, spiky bits, annoying bits, whatever it might be. Knowing yourself completely and recognizing all parts of yourself are enough.
Beautiful, Laura. All of that. And you were making me think at the beginning when you were sharing about awe and wonder and kind of connecting to the things you love and getting out in nature. And it was making me think about heart emotions. And I was kind of hoping someone from the Heart Math Institute in Santa Cruz might come to this, because in the Heart Math Institute in Santa Cruz, they measure heart energy, heart frequency, and they can measure how big your heart field is, which is contagious, by the way. The more loving that we feel, the more expansive we feel, that affects everyone around us. It's measurable.
I want that measured. I want my
frequency. Get a device.
I'm going to get one.
And they also measure heart-brain coherence, which you can so easily create through gratitude. So I saw them using one of these devices at a retreat I went to. And literally the person sat down and you could see they were not dysregulated, but they didn't have the heart-brain connection. And they just started taking slow, deep breaths and then mustering up a feeling of gratitude and someone and something somewhere that they were grateful for. And it flipped and they had this heart-brain connection. And when you have that, I'm going to have to look up the research on it, but it's so good for your body. It releases all of the happy hormones. It releases like so much that supports your immune system. It's just like the list is like off the charts incredible of how good it is for you. And it's so easy. It's so easy. So just that's just like a minute of dropping in, doing a few long breaths and feeling that sense of deep, deep gratitude, or doing whatever helps you to muster that sense of gratitude. That just begets more gratitude. And I think the way you described what you shared was perfect, because it's that and the shadow work, the working on self, the reflection. Because if you're just doing the gratitude piece and the kind of all of the kind of self-care and being in nature and doing the things you love, you're at risk of spiritually bypassing where all of those gifts are.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Too many people just think love and light. Like love and light is the way to go. Gratitude. No. Love and growth. It's coming back to all of those different beautiful words. It is hard work. We have got to go to the depths of the underworld, pick all of that stuff up and go, oh my God, what is this all about? And recognize it's worth it. Everybody listening, it is so worth it, because underneath it is you, pure you, and that pure love and light for yourself. But you've got to get down and get all of the dirty bits out and feel it and process it in whatever ways that works for you in order to get there. It ain't all love and light. It isn't love. And that's that misconception, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that, I think the first step's the hardest, when you're kind of like thinking, oh, should I work on myself? Or I probably don't want to. I'm a bit scared of what's down there and what's over there. Actually, that first step's the hardest. And when you get into the practice of processing that stuff, it's quicker. It's less scary. Just, I think they say, like, just holding an emotion without adding your story to it. If you can just hold an emotion that comes up, it tends to dissipate within 90 seconds. And you've processed it. Ta-da! Rinse and repeat. But in the processing of that, it's like you were talking about wholeness, Laura. That's the only way you can get to your true essence and wholeness. And there's a whole other angle that you can take. Not like, oh no, here's this grief and shame and jealousy and whatever it is coming up again. How awful. Don't want to look at that. I went to a brilliant yoga teacher in Bali, and she also had a degree in philosophy, and she caught me really early on because she started talking about how much she'd processed her trauma. So I was like, you're my buddy, I'm going to listen to you. So philosophy, trauma, yoga. And I remember her sharing at the beginning of one of her classes, and she was sharing like, oh, what if instead of saying, like, when we find that thing or that glitchy bit and we're like, oh no, not that bit again, she said, what if instead we said, oh look, great, and not, I get to untangle it now. It's like, it's that, it's been there the whole time, making you feel sick and horrible, or you've been pushing it down so far away and acting from a place of like persona and non-truth. You found it now. Brilliant. You can do something about
absolutely. It. And it's that quote you mentioned earlier about the ego. It's the bounce back game. The more you do it, the quicker you bounce back, to the point where almost I've said to myself, I'm like, am I avoiding? I can't be over that already. I can't have processed that already. And I'm like, no. I just alchemize quickly. And it's because my channel is clearer now. The more you work on, the more your channel is clear. The more, if you're triggered, the more you're able to look at it, witness it, work on it, move through it, move on, grow, learn.
Yeah. And you know what happens after that, Laura? Magic.
Oh my God, everyday magic in human form.
And that's where then we were talking at the beginning about connect and disconnect. That's when you truly start to connect. You connect to yourself, you connect to nature, you connect to those around you, and dare I say it, you connect to a higher power. And that is immense. And that's where I said, when we were kind of riffing on those kind of words, divine love, where you get into meditation and you feel so expansive and energy flows into your body and you're just like, this is amazing. I mean, sign me up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, the more you connect to that purity of yourself and the love within you, that it radiates. The problem is, and I know we're about to finish, but people want a bit of that. Okay, there is something with the energy of love that people are like, wow, give me some of that. But this is the discernment piece. It's recognizing not everybody has access to our loving energy. Lots of people want it because it is like a drug. It is genuinely like a drug. And the people that have done the work attract a lot of people into them. but not everybody has done the work is worthy of that time, and not everybody can sustain that mutual kind of need for what you need to sustain a relationship. So again, the love is not enough to sustain a healthy relationship dynamic.
And yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that brings me to one little thing that I wanted to share around breaking patterns and leveling up. In terms of space, actually, because I've found that where I've created space in like all sorts of relationships, either through just not being in touch with someone for a while, or through just creating like a gentle boundary, when we come back together in friendship and when we connect again, when you've both worked on yourselves, the level up is so much fun. And I just love when you've been in a friendship, a relationship with somebody, and you haven't spent time with them for a bit, when you come back together and then you kind of go into a whole other like iteration, kind of next octave of the relationship and the collaboration and the magic and joy and love and connection that comes with that. So sometimes when we put those boundaries in place, or they kind of, I don't know, we drift apart from somebody, we drift back again. And it's only for a short while. It doesn't have to be forever. Sometimes it can be, sometimes it doesn't have to be. And both, again, people of water, is about letting go and loving and blessing that for all, even our shortest of relationships, all the learning and reflection and light and connection they brought, So again, it comes back to gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah, and just a final point really, in terms of kind of endings, if any connection, any relationship ends, it's recognizing that is not a failure, and that ultimately you still had beautiful experiences together. Whatever that was, there was something about that connection. Even if it was challenging, you would have learned something from it, you would have grown from it. It's recognizing every connection has its value, no matter how long you stay within that for. But actually, if you feel like you're ever having to compromise yourself for somebody else, or the growth is stagnating, or it's not feeling good anymore, they're not enriching your life anymore over a prolonged period of time, this is a real kind of sense of, is this person for me? And recognizing that you making that decision that they're not, moving away from that in some way, does not mean that you failed. It just means that you are growing in different directions, but you can let them go with love, and that it doesn't discount the beautiful experiences, whatever they were, that you had together.
Yeah, 100%. And you can love from afar. And there are beautiful ways of doing that. I'm going to try and say this word, which I'm going to get wrong. If you're from Hawaii, please forgive me. But the Ho'oponopono prayer, do you know that one, Laura?
My God, remind me of it.
I'm sorry, please forgive. Oh my God, Laura, I feel like I need to totally fill you in on this. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. But actually, it was popularized by a psychotherapist in Hawaii who said that prayer to her patients who'd done like horrendous things. And I just got chills. In the hospital she was in, something like 60 or 70% of the patients left without her consulting with them, because she did the prayer and sent loving kindness and forgiveness, and there's an extended version that's like, I'm sorry I acted out of unconsciousness. Please forgive me for not being able to act in a more loving, present way. So you're taking responsibility for yourself. That's what that prayer is. And then there's the metta Buddhist prayer, which is about sending loving kindness. Again, measurable. I mean, but we're going to wrap things up, Laura. So just like with our last Streamyard, we were talking about what would it look like if parents and teachers came together for the highest good of our children. And a lot of the focus was on the self-work and the self-reflection. And we were talking about what would it look like if every single adult committed to that. So same question, but for love. What would it look like if every single adult on planet Earth committed to loving themselves more, first and foremost, and then emanating that out into the world, in their relationships, into their businesses, into their lives, into their families? What would that look like?
Oh my God. And I'm pretty sure my answer is pretty much the same, it would literally change the world as we know it. We would let go of the need to control and have power over people. Just the energy, the frequency of love would just mean that everybody would live these beautiful, fulfilling lives, flowing through the ebbs and flows and the challenges of life, and just free. That's the only word that comes to mind when I think about a world like that. Just the most beautiful free world.
Love it. Let's create it. We'll start. Anyone else who's joined in, if you want to join us, amazing.
Join the party.
It's like it's a win-win-win. Oh, my favourite kind of party.
The love bus. Yay!
Sign me up for that. But it's win-win-win, isn't it? Because when you lean into that, that's when I work on myself, as I work on myself, oh my God, life feels better. I feel more peace, more joy, more connection. So that's good for me. And it's good for all of my relationships, our friendship. And it's good for my business. It's good for the what I do with Learning Pioneers, with Press Play, with all the educators I work with, and every single person I'm around, even if I don't speak to them, because I reckon, as we were talking about heart energy, and you can feel it. I reckon I walk down the co-op down in Wootton-under-Edge here, and I reckon people feel that when I'm in a good mood.
Oh my God, people are like, I want a bit of what she's having. And the thing is, it's a bit like, it's an energetic thing. It's a bit like pheromones. It's like people can't explain it. There's no logic. There's no logic behind it. It's just this aura of love. It's beautiful to be in the presence of those people.
And then cool stuff happens, Laura, like when we were hanging out in Stratford-upon-Avon, and you said we were walking around like two magic wands, which I just loved. And all this magic stuff kept happening.
Oh my God, genuinely. Yes, exactly. We were emanating the energy, the frequency of love, and people couldn't do enough for us.
Right, we need to meet up again, Laura, and we need to do another Streamyard.
We do. After your birthday next time, didn't we say?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say happy birthday. It was your birthday 2 years ago. 2 days ago. Happy birthday.
Thank you, my love.
Oh, thank you everyone for joining in. Kim, it was so lovely to have you here. Thank you for coming. And if you're watching back, do comment, because Laura and I will be checking in with the comments, because we love feeding back and hearing what you've got to say. So have a lovely rest of day, evening, and thank you so much, Laura. I love you.
I love you too. Sending love to everybody who has watched this live and who's watching it back. Bye bye, my friends.